Welcome to the Big Bets on Campus podcast presented by BetMGM. I am your host, Jim Root, joined by the rest of the three-man weave crew, Kai McEwen and Matt Cox. Every single Wednesday morning, we'll be dropping a new BBOC episode talking all things betting in the world of college hoops. In today's episode, we're going to discuss key games of the week, a little bit of power, a little bit of mid-major. We've, of course, got our outright dog section, a trash man pick of the week, and at the end, a little spotlight on an elite Saturday. It is the first dream Saturday of the college basketball season, with college football finally taking a back seat. I know they're waiting on bowl games and debating the CFP entrance, but here over at Three Man Weave, we are dialed in on a college hoop Saturday. Fellas, let's get into it. Talking live dog of the week to start off. And Matthew, you kind of helped us out last week with Tarleton getting an outright win over Stephen F. Austin. Kai, you threw a dart at St. Joe's. They knocked off Villanova. Unfortunately, Sam Houston, Evansville, and Bellarmine did not really live up to what we wanted, but that's a couple of winners. Going to start looking at ones for this week. And folks, if you're listening, there are almost no games on Thursday and Friday. So I think there's like 14 combined line games between the two. So we're focusing a lot on the Wednesday slate. I'm going to start with my favorite one of these potential live dogs, and I'll kick to you guys to see what you're looking at, whether you agree with me or if there's something else you've got circled. I'm going with Utah Tech +8 at Cal Baptist Wednesday night. This is a conference game for both teams, a whack game out there, wacky whack, plenty of wacky things happen. And Utah Tech is tremendously well coached. We've documented that internally, kind of our wonder at John Judkins and what he's done with those Utah Tech or that Utah Tech squad. They got a star freshman point guard, Eric Demings. I just don't fully trust Cal Baptist yet. Kai, do you agree with me? Do you not? Is there another game that has jumped out to you?
No, I agree with you, Jim. I'm on Utah Tech as well here. They've done really nothing wrong. They've only really been blown out one game. That was Washington State, but they've hung around some good opponents at Santa Clara, at Youngstown State. They were in both those games, or at least they came back and covered. And that's really all we care about when we're looking at this section. But they can win this game outright for sure. Number one, conference game. Always sort of play a little bit differently than non-con, a little more familiarity between teams. And two, I just love what Judkins has done with Utah Tech, the transition to D1. He's been fantastic, really under the radar. Cal Bab not going to overwhelm you with size, or at least Utah Tech with size. So I like the Trailblazers here, Matthew. I'm going to take a swing on them. I like that they've played a tougher schedule as well than Cal Baptist.
Yeah, fun PG battle between Dom Daniels and Eric Demings for Utah Tech. Maybe the better of those two is who gets the W here. I did not take that. I like the Cal Baps had a whole week off. Jim, I like the other two that you talked about. South Carolina at Clemson. Why don't you tee that one up for us?
I didn't talk about either, Matthew. You take that one away. It's a big old rivalry game in South Carolina. Last year, the Gamecocks got Clemson, and it ended up maybe dooming Clemson to the NIT. So there's got to be some revenge on the mind of the Orange Tigers, who have been nearly flawless this season so far, Matt. Actually are flawless in the outright record, but even against the number, they've been terrific. So tell me why you're going to ride with the Gamecocks a second straight year.
Yeah, the revenge angle certainly has me concerned, but I think there is, the Lamont Paris matchup blueprint. Maybe he has something figured out there with how to prep for Brad Brownell's team, which, looks a lot like last year's group. And I think you've got a point now where you've hit the peak of Clemson's value. Like, I think we all accept they're really good. I just don't know they can be any better. So at +7, the implied KenPom spread, Kai, you should be able to get 2-1 here or better on the Gamecocks. It's not a long travel. It's a pretty easy, cross-state trip there. And just the way these guards have really played for the Gamecocks. I mean, Paris really hyped them up preseason, and they lived up to the billing. Shot making, I think this game actually has a lot of variance. I think just with both teams, the way they shoot the three. So in that regard, it kind of sets up well for a good money line type of game. So go Cox, my Cox.
Yeah, you're Matt Cox. You like the Cox. I get it. Yeah, I'm probably just staying away. I really like Clemson, but I've been impressed with South Carolina too. It's not a bad play. I just think this Clemson team is for real, Jim. So I will not be taking the money line dog here.
That's where I landed. And there's a lot of Clemson guys back from last year, especially PJ Hall, who is healthy and playing at an All-American level. And I just think that's going to be on the mind. It's going to be tough for them, or for South Carolina, to repeat the success they had last year, especially at Little John. Tough place to play, Matt. As an ACC guy, I know you fear Little John.
Yeah, everyone does. House of Horrors. Who doesn't, though, is Lamont Paris, baby. Undefeated. versus undefeated. This would be a great game. I think one of the best games of the week, by the way. I'm upset it's not lodged with the Saturday awesome slate, but I guess I'm good stands alone.
All kinds of rivalries. We'll discuss more of them again at the end in the spotlight section. A couple other potential live dogs I'll throw at you guys. UNLV is +9 at Dayton. Feels like it could be a lapse in focus game for the Flyers, but they, of course, have a terrific home court advantage there at UD Arena. Tough travel for UNLV, too. Another rivalry local game here in the state of Rhode Island. Brown +7 at Rhode Island. Brown's not been very good this year, but they are owed some shooting regression on both ends. Perhaps this is the one they show up to. And then Robert Morris at Canisius, another not super long travel game. Canisius just played 2 conference games. Actually, Robert Morris did 2. And Canisius is still without star guard Taj Staveski. Matt, do any of these jump out of you, or is there something off the radar that you're actually looking at locking in?
No, I think Bobby Moe, the Colonials, baby. That's the best one you picked out. It's the only one I'm actually going to officially take. I like South Carolina, love enough to actually take it, but I will take Robert Morris. You're catching Canisius off 2 conference games, only 2 days of rest. They got healthy last game as well. We've seen Bobby Moe rise. They almost knocked off Towson at Towson. It was a pretty impressive effort. And Canisius, again, off the conference 2-game opener with the injuries that they have, short turnaround prep. I think Bobby Moe gets them here.
It's also Robert Morris off 2 conference games with 1 more day of rest, and they're traveling. So I'm staying away that one. I think Canisius is for real. I know they just lost St. Peter's, but I think this team's pretty good. All the Metro Atlantic coaches said they would be this season and was kind of skeptical, but so far they've sort of lived up to the billing, even without Staveski in the lineup. Brown, that one feels like Brown wins. And I love Rhode Island, but that is a classic just letdown spot for the Rams of the past couple of years. And man, fading Ivy teams as dogs in non-conference play, it's usually not fun. I know Brown's been the exception maybe a little bit this year, but I can see Brown pulling that one off.
Yeah, Brown's made me pull my hair out a couple games this year. Did not bet them recently and felt good as they did not cover. And it's like, oh, finally, I got myself off that train. Guys, sneaky under the radar. How has Robert Morris gotten away with keeping the Colonials while George Washington had to change their name for reasons?
The Revs.
Shocking.
Student population, their choice.
You should go Bobby Moe, the Bobby Moes or something. Let's just fully lean into that as their rebranded mascot.
All right, quick recap of what we're locking in. I am going with Utah Tech and Robert Morris joining Matthew there. Those are the 2 that I'm officially taking. Kai, what about you?
I'm just going Utah Tech, the Trailblazers, the Fighting Judkins.
We couldn't talk you into Brown. Bummer.
No,
Matthew,
they've been really bad.
Yeah, they have.
They hate making free throws. They hate making free throws.
But Rhode Island hates making them more.
That's true. They both hate making.
2 of the worst in the country. Yeah.
Matt, what about you?
Bobby Moe. I need no Moe on my slate.
Okay. All right. Just 2 for me, 1 for Kai, 1 for Matt. Moving on to Blowout City. Last week, somehow James Madison couldn't put Buffalo away. It really confuses me. The ultimate play with your food, got complacent scenario. The team that didn't, we snuck in the Iowa North Florida game at the end of the section, and Iowa, I think, went 13-1 run to end the game to get the cover there, Kai, and we smiled. We smiled upon the Hawkeyes.
Depending on your number, I'm not sure they closed or they covered the final number, but if you got 24.5, you did cover. So again, Jim, shouldn't have been close. Kind of 2 strange Blowout City games, I think, last week.
Yep. And, we're always trying to find a motivated favorite.
Yeah.
And I think I've got one here this week. That would be Denver headed to Colorado State. Colorado State, maybe you could look at this game as they played some big ones, and this is one where they aren't focused. But Denver's a local team. Fort Collins only about an hour and a half, I think, from Denver. So I would think there's still the focus. And, man, this is as big of a mismatch as you'll find with Colorado State's number 6 offense nationally per KenPom taking on Denver's defense, which is 345th nationally. I mean, Colorado State can score 120 points here if they want to, right? Like, this is name your number type stuff.
Yes, it is. And Denver hasn't played any team better than 225 in the country in KenPom. They have not seen an offense anywhere close to this, and their defense truly is poor. It's been poor for many years under Wolbrun. Now, his offense is pretty good this season, and Denver's an improved team, but I don't think you can match up with Colorado State. And look at what Colorado State has done already, too. Similarly ranked teams. They smoked UNKC. They smoked Northern Colorado. They smoked Wright State, who is way better than Denver. So I do like this one, Jim. I think I'll be sniffing the Rammies on Wednesday.
Matthew?
I won't. Jim, can I take your blueprint of semi-motivated crosstown rival and cherry pick on Houston playing Rice? Both Houston.
This was my other consideration for the spot. Yep.
Here's a good count. They didn't play last year. They played 2 years ago. Rice had the exact same KenPom rank, 220, then as they do today. Houston won by 33. Houston's always Houston. I think Houston wins by 30 plus in this one. So this will be my blowout pick. I think KenPom has it 26. Hopefully the odds makers don't completely screw you out of that value and give you 29. I think I'd lay it up to 30 with the Cougars.
Hey, 2019, Rice 248, Houston 39, but they finished 12. Only won by 11.
The
That's
physicality edge seems super extreme for Houston. I mean, Rice has been beaten up in the paint quite a bit. They can shoot, which is what you need to compete with Houston, but the shots are all contested. And I'm not sure Rice actually creates any open ones. So that's a little bit of an issue. I did, Matt, like I said, I started typing that one up in our outline and I switched to Colorado State. So I do think both have some merit if you're looking for.
They just played Houston Christian, Jim. So going from Houston Christian's defense to Houston's defense is like, as you've said before, going from like the rookie Madden level to the all Madden level. Like you're going to just be like in a world of hurt playing in slow-mo.
Yep. It doesn't, those two don't even compare. Then a week after, Rice gets Incarnate Word. They drop back down to rookie mode defensively. So they've got a little bit of a whiplash in opponents there. All right, we're going to talk power games of the week now, the best ones of Wednesday. But before we do, got to give a quick shout out to our sponsors at BetMGM. Use bonus code ACTION when signing up at BetMGM for $1,500 paid back in bonus bets if your first bet loses. For new users in Arizona, Colorado, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, and Wyoming. Terms and conditions apply. It must be 21 or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Shout out to BetMGM. BBOC is sponsored by BetMGM. All right, guys, to talk power games of the week, I'm going to start off with Texas at Marquette, the Shaka Smart Bowl. Mr. McEwen, Shaka's old team coming up to Milwaukee. KenPom has the spread -8. Maybe a little steep considering preseason expectations for where Texas was, but Dylan Disu still maybe not quite back in the mix for the Longhorns. Marquette's angry coming off a rivalry loss to Wisconsin. How does this all set up for you looking at Shaka's rematch?
Yeah, spread's high, but I like Marquette. Texas has played one team in the top 150. That was UConn, albeit they played them pretty well, but I think Marquette matches up slightly better with them. And that's a lot has to do with the backcourt, the way they pressure defensively. I think that bothers a smaller Ace Smith and Hunter, who are experienced guards, but ones that have had kind of trouble with more athletic backcourts this season. We've only had one example, but still, I think Marquette gets a bounce back here off that Wisconsin loss. Certainly trust them way more right now as a team. And then Matt, I'll take Shaka Smart over Rodney Terry any day.
Yeah, I mean, no brainer spot here. Just, do you want to lay 8 is the question. Worth note, Texas did win at West Virginia last year. They won at K-State, which is a little more impressive last year. I think Marquette's a whole different animal just with how good they are in the matchup issues they present. And yeah, the coaching mismatch, I think, is pretty ginormous, with all due respect to Mr. Terry there. Caden Sheedrick has been kind of a huge piece for Texas. Like, their only bad game, arguably, is the UConn one, and he didn't play in that one. So I'm worrying maybe
Louisville is bad
Texas. Too. Yeah, Louisville's bad too. That's right. Louisville just maybe got really hyped for that game. That's true. And Sheedrick was dominant in that game, I should mention. Yeah, you know what? Screw it. I'm taking Texas. I agree. Why am I concerned with Texas? No, they're not that good.
First true road game, by the way, for Texas, if you're into that sort of thing.
Yeah. And Texas was down at Texas State as well. So yeah, maybe they're not that good. Shut me up.
No, guys, I don't think Texas is that good. I'm hoping that maybe the market is friendly and doesn't put it all the way up at 8 where KenPom has it, but with Disu potentially still being out, that could be a slight issue. Texas has not beaten a team in the top 150 of KenPom. Only played one, whereas Marquette's played a gauntlet. I just have to lean towards the Golden Eagles there. They're just better.
Brock Cunningham now starting kind of scares me too. No, it does not. It does not at all scare me.
Scares you if you're a Texas guy.
Oh, that makes me love Marquette even more. Tell you what.
Last 4 full-time starter now, yeah.
All right, on Thursday, like I said, I think there are only 5 line games on Thursday, but one of them is Cy-Hawk, a giant rivalry game. Iowa headed to Iowa State. Now, in my mind, guys, the home team has dominated this matchup. I looked up, got the data on it. The home team has won 7 of the last 8 straight up and is 5-2-1 against the spread, but that's mostly Iowa. Iowa 4-0 straight up and against the spread at home. They've been a little bit more shaky in Iowa State games, partially because under Steve Prohm, Iowa State became terrible for a couple of years stretch. But last time Iowa State hosted with Otzelberger in charge, they won by 20, rolled this Hawkeyes team. Matt, give me a reason why I shouldn't just auto back the home team in Iowa playing their second game of the week after a Monday night demolition loss at Purdue.
Yeah, and they play their second Big Ten game Sunday after as well. I'm with you on this. I think neither team has like impressed me against anyone of legit competition. I guess Iowa had a good 30 minutes against Creighton, whatever you want to call it. But other than that, I think they're both sort of propped up by smashing inferior competition, depending how good you think Seton Hall is. But that's why it's a tough handicap because you really don't know a lot about either team. I will trust the historical data and lean with the home team here and the spot, but I'm not going to make it an official play. I'm too scared. Too soft.
Yeah, I've been disappointed. I've been disappointed with Iowa State against power teams, like Matt said. I mean, they were up 21 on Texas A&M, but we know they were hurt and let them back in the game and ended up losing that one. But the Virginia Tech game was scary. The VCU game was bad. Even DePaul, I think, was up for a little bit. I know Iowa State ended up killing them, but I don't think Iowa's been that great either. So yeah, I default to the home team here. Now I know Iowa State's only played bad teams at home, but they are covering by an average of 17 points per game at home this season. The Hilton Magic, there's some juice to that arena, and I think the spot is a lot better for Iowa State. So I will probably lean towards the Hawkeyes, or excuse me, the Cyclones here, Jim.
Yeah, definitely lean towards the home team. I've seen Iowa play a couple of road games now with that Creighton one and at Purdue on Monday when they just got overwhelmed by the atmosphere and the defensive intensity that Purdue was able to bring. And I think Iowa State's going to deliver that same kind of thing. And Iowa's half-court offense just isn't there yet. They don't have that star. Robbie Hummel talked about it a bunch on the broadcast. Like, there's no Garza, there's no Murray twin. It's not even a Joe Wieskamp on this team. And if they can't get out and run, and Iowa State will do a pretty solid job of keeping you out of transition, it's going to frustrate that team, and Iowa State can pick up some steals and go the other way. And that's where it gets ugly. So I definitely lean to Iowa State. Going to be eyeing the actual number in the market. If it's 5 or lower, I will be betting Iowa State. We'll see, though. All right, let's go to mid-major game of the week, guys. And again, we are focused on Wednesday because the Thursday and Friday slates are light. But on Wednesday, we've got a New York battle. Hofstra and Iona, 2 potential conference winners here. Both won their regular season crowns last year. There's still no Osborne Shima for Iona, the preseason first team all-conference honoree for the Gales, whereas Hofstra has one of the country's leading scorers, and Tyler Thomas. Kai, what are you looking at with this matchup? Hofstra has the -2 favorite line per KenPom.
Yeah, man, any other year, it'd be Iona for me, but I'm not impressed with the current version of the Gales. Their 3 wins are Sacred Heart, Buffalo, and Fairfield. Just like, it's not a murderer's row of competition so far. They've lost to good teams, obviously. And Hofstra has looked pretty good. No real fault with losing to Princeton and at George Washington's even a tough game, but to smoke South Florida the way they did, to beat Wright State and High Point on neutral floors, I think that's pretty impressive. I like the way they can score. Iona's offense, I do not trust. Iona's defense right now, I do not trust. I lean towards Hofstra here. TBD on betting it. The number's not really, Matt, where I'd make it.
I like Hofstra here. I like that they're on the road, and again, that should effectively have not much home value at all. And also, I'd mentioned this point before, probably too much, but Iona coming off the conference twofer to start the year, and Iona won the last conference game, so they're coming off a win. Tobin Anderson has basically said, like, we're really much a work in progress. I think we're just trying to get ready for MAAC play and all the new faces. How do you play without Chima? Yada, yada, yada. I think all that sets up for Hofstra, and their resume is just emphatically better, more impressive, more consistent. So yeah, I like the pride. Tyler Thomas and the boys.
Yeah, I'm with you, Matt. Hofstra, just kind of where these two teams are at in their development stages. Hofstra's top 3 players are all back, like guys that they can rely on from last year, know how to play together, whereas Iona is 360th nationally in minutes continuity. They basically got no one back without Shima playing. And the Iona message board is a little bit down on the squad. They're trying to talk themselves into being optimistic, and Tobin Anderson having some time off to prepare for this game, Friday to Wednesday, but Hofstra's off for even longer, so they've got plenty of prep time. And again, it's just a team that's more fully formed at this stage. So a big Hofsterling, going to keep an eye on that number as well.
And they have Hako Fritz. He was just an absolute mid-major all-star. So that's a key point.
Formerly of Canisius, played against Iona in the MAAC. So
that was the scout.
Did you say Hako?
Yako. Thank you.
I thought you said Hako.
The Dutchman. Yeah, no, not Yako. Yako Taco.
Yeah, it's not a Spanish name with the soft Hota, as it were. All right, next up, the other mid-major game of the week we're looking at, Toledo at Oakland, two teams that actually aren't very far apart. If you look at the old Ohio-Michigan geography, play fairly frequently. Oakland is off to a hot start, 8-1 against the spread, but they just got trounced by Fort Wayne, their first ATS loss of the year. Rockets have lost 4 in a row, but all 4 of them have been fairly competitive. They covered against Indiana State, who's been a complete juggernaut this year. That is no small feat. Kai, what are you looking at between these two? Again, both, especially Oakland, coming out of that conference gauntlet.
Man, I kind of lean Toledo here, which I hate because I love Oakland and they've been awesome besides that Purdue-Fort Wayne game. But to be able to beat Oakland's zone, you got to be able to handle the ball, which I think Toledo can do, and you got to be able to shoot, which I know Toledo can do, which is weird. They're not shooting a ton of threes this season, and they've done this the past couple seasons. Their three-point attempt rate hasn't been as high as you'd expect, but of course they're among the best shooting teams in the country. They're hitting shots. I think they're going to bounce back here. I lean their way winning this game, and Matt, I'm not terrified of Oakland's offense. They're super well coached and they can execute. And the Xavier game was very impressive. But I don't think they can, bend over a Toledo defense that is never very good.
I don't either. I worry about Toledo's offense, though. Like, it's very much predicated on, cutting and running guys off like screens. And it's all driven toward getting to the rim. It's why I don't shoot many threes. They only take wide open, great quality threes. And their only good shooter has been Dante Maddox. He has 15 of their, 30 made threes on the year. I mean, so he's kind of their one-man team in terms of shooting. And Oakland, I think, will sort of force you to shoot with the way they play that zone. It's a weird kind of extended zone. So I think Toledo can maybe carve it up with their passing. I kind of like Oakland, actually. This is a hard stay away for me. Like, the look at the last 4 years, it's the results have been all over the place. So,
yeah, this is sitting on the fence for me as well. Generally like both of these teams going forward. I think they're probably going to be teams to back in their conferences, despite that last Oakland effort. But this one, tough nut to crack between these two. Like these guys broke down with the matchup angles. It's really hard to solve. So going to sit that one out in terms of betting for the show here. All right. One more segment before we get to our Saturday spotlight, and that is the Trash Man pick of the week. It's the ultimate trash pile, the ultimate game where we're just probably staying away from unless we find an angle to it. And that would be Valpo at Central Michigan. Those are my two honorees this week. Central Michigan laying 3, according to the KenPom odds maker or the KenPom algorithm. Don't know what the official line will be. I know Central Michigan's very banged up, but man, they really haven't been that sharp unless they're winning outright, Kai. They're 0-5 against the spread in losses. They get crushed if they lose. Valpo's 345th in offensive efficiency. Does anything jump out to you between these two teams?
I like how scrappy Valpo has been. Their roster is brutally bad, but they've been in games. They've won games, which I think shocks me from just the start. Just valuing this team. I mean, Southern beat Mississippi State. Valpo beat them by 12. I'm not saying Southern's a great team, but it's still something. And Central Michigan's not been a world beater by any stretch. So I kind of like that angle a bit, Matt, for Valpo. I just think they're a team that will try and scrap harder, and they have that underdog mentality. And like Jim mentioned in the beginning, Central Michigan is super banged up. 2 guys missed last game. 2 guys got hurt the game before, which I'm not sure if they're in or out. Good luck finding out before the game tips. I lean towards Valpo here, Matt. The number probably won't really give me anything.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, they probably should have covered against Drake. Drake just hit the gas pedal late in that conference opener, and they covered against Belmont, and they beat Southern at W before. They were close against Illinois for like
they led at half.
Yeah, led at half. So I know these are all very minor victories, but next to CMU's resume, which is basically we beat Siena, who's terrible, and we beat South Florida on a fluky game. I side with Valpo here. I'm with Kai.
Yeah, I came into the year thinking I would just be fade Valpo every game because I thought the roster was awful, but they have been much more competent than I expected. And perhaps I should remind myself that their coach is Roger Powell, who comes from the Mark Few coaching tree at Gonzaga. Last assistant hired off that staff is Tommy Lloyd at Arizona. He has done quite well for himself. Obviously, he walked into a lot more talent and a better situation than Powell did, but perhaps I shouldn't be surprised by how competitive Valpo has been this far. And man, I don't trust Central Michigan at all, especially if some of the guys that Kai alluded to that got banged up last game join Rubio on the sideline and what they've been really just lacking all year in terms of roster continuity. So it's a pretty strong lean across the board for Valpo. And guys, I might end up betting Valpo depending on these injuries. It'll be something I check at game time for sure. All right, let's get to the final section, and that is the spotlight on a loaded Saturday slate. I'm just going to quick run through some of the games that are atop the board, and then there'll be some ones that people are probably surprised aren't even included. But we've got Purdue versus Alabama in Toronto, TCU and Clemson also up there in Toronto, a little doubleheader. Cincinnati at Xavier in the backyard brawl in Cincinnati. I love that game every year.
Wait, crosstown shootout, I thought.
Crosstown shootout. Yeah, you're right. Sorry.
Backyard brawl is
Pitt, West Virginia.
Yeah.
Pitt, who also play Wednesday, right? Pitt, West Virginia. Don't they play Wednesday?
So it is definitely rivalry week.
I don't think it's called the shootout anymore, though. They changed it for gun reasons.
We're calling it that. Just like the Red River shootout's not the Red River shootout anymore. It is in our minds. We know.
Right.
But yes, thank you. Good catch. BYU at Utah, massive game. Two teams from the Beehive State that have played terrific so far. I believe that's
Holy War.
Yes.
Holy War.
Yes.
Yeah.
The Holy War, also great. Illinois at Tennessee, Arkansas versus Oklahoma in Tulsa, kind of a budding basketball rivalry there that they've played a bunch recently. Gonzaga at Washington, an in-state rivalry. Wisconsin goes out to Arizona. UCLA goes to Villanova. I mean, that's like 8 great games, and we're not even talking Kansas, Mizzou, Rutgers, Seton Hall, Syracuse, Georgetown, like other big-time rivalry games. It is loaded. Matt, I'm going to go to you first here. Which game jumps out to you, either from a matchup or just a betting number angle, that you think is something worth looking at on this giant Saturday in December?
The one I have circled is in the Beehive State, because Beehive basketball is booming right now. Utah hosting BYU, which we all agree that we love the Storm and Mormons, but I think they're overvalued at this point. 8th in KenPom, and they're also a little bit banged up front. Mark Pope talked about that on Phil 68 After Dark, and Fous Traore has been out, and there are other guys. I got Alec Khalifa back recently, but they haven't been able to kind of optimize that frontline tandem. And against Utah's frontline towers, led by Braden Carlson, who can also stretch you away, it's sort of a problematic situation. So I think it's a perfect, awesome Holy War hype home spot for Utah to back them, especially kind of as people forgot about them, I'd say. They had the MTE, they lost those 2 games, but I think looked pretty impressive. Then they whack St. Mary's up there. They take your business against Hawaii. I think it's kind of a good time for Utah to reassert themselves and add to that at-large resume, which I think is sort of the mission this year for Craig Smith.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. Fading BYU is scary as hell. They have looked incredible, but the spot is really good. The rivalry angle, the fact that BYU really hasn't beaten. I mean, San Diego State's a good team, but I don't think Arizona State's good, and NC State's good, and Fresno State's terrible. So there are some, I guess, caveat or holes you can poke if you really want to in BYU's resume, which if you're looking to bet Utah, that's what you want to do. Jim, I'll just
first true roadie for BYU.
First true roadie, boom. Yeah, I would love to go to a Utah game or a BYU game or Utah State. How would you get to the Beehive State, by the way? Jim, I guess what I'm looking at is top of the board here. Purdue, Alabama is going to be really interesting. Not only will the total be like 170, and it'll probably go over. I think the Boilermakers kick their butt, and that's just due to the defensive end for Alabama. Arkansas State is not a really good example, but gosh, I mean, I wasn't that impressed by Alabama's defense there. I think Purdue has a lot of guys that can match up with Grant Nelson. Kaufman Wren is very, very mobile. Gillis even. So I like the Boilermakers, Jim, against Alabama in Toronto.
Yeah, but Alabama just hasn't really done well stepping up in class either. Losing to Ohio State, losing to Clemson, and Clemson at home that was. And the Oregon win, man, that is super banged up Oregon with no interior players. I'm seeing here that Purdue has a couple big guys, Kai. They've got one especially that they can feature. I think the one I like most of that group here is Oklahoma, actually, against Arkansas.
Mm.
I think Arkansas is a different team at home right now, and we saw that against Duke, and they did get Tremont Mark back for the win over Furman. That was a shorthanded Furman team, no Marcus Foster. And Oklahoma's just been way, way better than I've expected so far this season. Arkansas has not figured out their pecking order. Their shot selection is really bad. And I think if they don't have the juice of that home crowd at Bud Walton, it's not going to be quite the same. I think there will be a lot of Arkansas fans there that typically are for this neutral site game. I just trust Oklahoma more right now and what Porter Moses has been able to put together there. Matt, any other games jump out to you? You can even go further down the list if you want to. I just want to make sure we discuss and give a lot of love to this fantastic Saturday slate.
Yeah, I'm with you on OU because they've been better on neutral sites too, right? I mean, Arkansas was certainly vulnerable down there at the Bahamas, and OU won their 4-teamer, looked really good. Porter Moser, good coach. And if he's watched any tape on Arkansas, the book is just press them, and they don't know what to do. They couldn't close out Furman last night, and Furman was shorthanded. So, and obviously the Duke game is what sticks out. A win that will not age, has not aged very well. Villanova hosting UCLA. I'm still selling UCLA. And I'm buying Villanova when they don't play Philadelphia schools.
Yeah.
So
undefeated against non-Big Five
undefeated
opponents.
against non-Philly programs.
Yeah, that's a good one there, Matthew. I'm staying fully away from crosstown shootout because I think there's just a different type of magic that goes in that sort of game. Cincinnati's been better than Xavier, and their front line is certainly better than Xavier's decrepit front line currently. But again,
one, anecdotally, is home court heavy.
Yes, extremely. Well, you would think, and I think the visiting team won last year. I think Xavier won at Cincy.
I think there was a stretch where Xavier won 1 million in a row at home or something like that.
Yeah. So this is the one year I'm kind of hesitant that it's like, okay, I mean, this is Cincy's clearly the better team for the first time in a while here. But yeah, it doesn't matter in some of these rivalry games. I think Gonzaga will beat Washington, Jim. That's another pick I guess.
Yep, I definitely lean that way. And Kai, our alma mater, Mizzou, heading on.
We're gonna get smoked.
I'm hiding under my desk for that one. That.
Oh, I think you have a chance.
Kansas is always especially motivated to thrash Mizzou. They won by 30 at Mizzou last year. It's only 14 or 15 this
like
year.
50 the year before. It was around there.
Yep. This is just a game where if it's 12 late, Kansas will do everything possible to make it 20. There's no going to be mild rollover. Bill Self wants to crush the spirit of Mizzou, and unfortunately, Mizzou has been more competent lately. I'm just not sure they can score with DeJuan Harris blanketing Sean East, and I don't think Mizzou's really figured out the offensive end, especially against a team with 3 elite individual defenders like the Jayhawks. Matt, make the case for Mizzou. You seem like
nobody's guarding Hunter Dickinson.
You're right, I know, but you can spread them out. This is my Connor Vanover game I've been waiting for all year. This is where you spread them out, and Connor makes 4 pick and pop threes. You kind of have KU on their heels. I don't know. I think you guys look good the last 2 games. I mean, beat Pitt at Pitt, and Wichita State, I know, wasn't an emphatic wire-to-wire domination, but you controlled that game pretty handily. I kind of like the fire that Dennis Gates lit under the boys after the really disgusting, what was it, the South Carolina State game or the Loyola game before that? I don't know. Maybe a little bit of upset from the demolition derby last season too. As I talk through it, I'm already scared.
I'll be the alma mater fader here. Matt and I can go head to head.
I'll be a true
sadly take Kansas minus 14 or 15. I think it gets gruesome in Lawrence.
I don't think you can bet Mizzou against Kansas till further notice.
The fact that Bill Self does want to destroy Kansas as a real part of this handicap,
Mizzou,
you have to account for that. Yeah, sorry.
He really does.
Mizzou.
Yes.
He takes it like we are here to destroy Mizzou.
Which I respect. I respect wholeheartedly.
Yep. And Mizzou's got to prove they can compete with that team before you really give them a puncher's chance. Other great games that day: Indiana, Auburn. Matthew, your alma mater. I'm probably fading them in Atlanta.
I will too.
Auburn crowd, and Auburn's just better than they can take away the paint, and that's all Indiana's got.
Yeah, if Auburn even shoots 30% from 3, I think they dominate. So yeah, I'm with you. There's nothing other complicated or sophisticated out of that handicap. I just think Auburn's a better team.
Yep. St. Mary's at Colorado State. Eileen, Colorado State. St. Mary's playing up against quality competition's been horrible this year. They just haven't been able to do it. Seems like they're shook confidence-wise. They don't have enough shot creation. Colorado State can score against them. So lean towards the Rams. That's about it. Any other takes for Saturday, guys, before we let the people sign off with a nice BBOC episode here?
Georgetown beat Syracuse, I think. Ed Cooley This team's terrible, but they tend to play well when they're discounted, just like we saw last weekend, right? They were supposed to get thrashed by TCU, and then they, basically almost beat TCU. I think they beat Syracuse, a team that I don't think is very well coached.
Man, Jim, you're gonna give me 9 points with St. Mary's. Last time they've been a dog that size. Oh, that's a really good dog.
Yeah, I might take St. Mary's.
Really good dog.
They're a dog of that size against elite dominant Gonzaga teams. That's
like
the only time it's happened.
Yeah, I might go their way. Yeah, man. Yeah. What a slate of basketball on Saturday. Holy cow. 102 games, but there's like 20 amazing ones.
Yep. So if you're missing college football, that's fine. College basketball is here for you with open arms, waiting to give you a nice comforting hug and welcoming to you while you wait for bowl season. But that's it, fellas. That's all we got today for this episode of BBOC. Thank you to BetMGM for sponsoring us. And thank you to everybody for listening. We'll see you again next week. For Matt, for Kai, I'm Jim Root. Happy betting.